Amazed at everybody that's in the chat right now that's watching. I really appreciate it. I just want to point that out. For those of you not familiar with me, I spent 25 years in local television, both in front of and behind the camera. I covered politics. I loved covering politics. I loved talking to people seeking office or in office. I loved challenging their views. Um, but I never walked away from anybody personally hating them. Most people I talk to genuinely believe in what they're talking about. They genuinely want change. No, the time for talk certainly isn't over. The time for talk never ends in a democracy. When the talking ends, I don't know. The person who killed Charlie Kirk wanted the talking to end. I don't think it should. I'm not surprised, but I'm disappointed that there is a lot of conspiracy theories floating around there. History tells us that this was likely the act of one person. We don't obviously know that for sure yet, but all signs point to that. Charlie Kirk, one of his main views was a staunch defense of the Second Amendment. He once even said that, we have to accept deaths as part of that freedom bestowed, in his view, by the Constitution of almost limitless rights to own firearms. If Charlie Kirk had survived this shooting, even if he had been horribly disfigured, horribly disabled, I don't think for a second that view would have changed because he believed in it. And I don't believe for a second that somebody like him, who had security, personal security, I don't think for a second he never thought that something like this could happen. Of course, he thought something like this could happen, and that's why I don't think that it would ever change what he believed in when it came to the Second Amendment. Somebody just asked, where's the accountability for letting people on these roofs? Well, this is not an elected leader. This is not Secret Service. There's no security. He was invited by a student group. He has his own security, and they can check in the area however they want. If Charlie Kirk feared for his life enough, they could have held that event somewhere else. It wasn't that long ago he held an event not far from here at the University of Iowa. It was an indoor event. I thought about I raised the idea of covering it, and we chose not to because of the concern for violence, but also the fact we didn't know what it would add to cover it, especially because it was late. It would have been tough on a deadline to cover it, but we weren't sure what it was going to add to just talk about Charlie Kirk speaking and another group of people being mad about it. We felt that the people who really cared about the story, one way or the other, would be there. Yeah, I apologize. We do keep having problems with our internet signal. I'm working to try and get that fixed, but I have been unable to find a solution to the issue, unfortunately. So I do apologize for that. I know we're kind of getting cut in and out here, but I do appreciate you all staying with us. I think it's worth just having a very simple discussion about what happened, about the anger, which is real, about the aftermath. And from where I stand, I have a lot of fears about what comes next. I do. I don't like what our nation has become. I don't like what it's led to. But I also try and look at things in context. We have had political assassinations, political attacks. This is the latest one. I see people blaming Democrats for their rhetoric. Certainly one could make that case, but you can't look at it in an echo chamber. This is not a call to arms. It's a call to reason. And it's a call that needs to be heeded by all of our leaders. Just before, I believe, he was pronounced dead, there was a moment of silence on the floor of the House. Democrats and Republicans came together and held a moment of silence respectfully. Then when a Republican asked that there be a special prayer given, one Democrat didn't like that idea. I don't think there was any harm in having a prayer. I don't know why one Democrat was upset about a prayer after just taking part in a moment of silence. That's on them. That's not all people who align their views with Democrats. Just like people on the internet saying that it's time to get your guns and rise up against Democrats, I don't think that's conducive with the views of most conservatives. And, on the other side, I see people trying to blame Trump. You can't blame Trump for what happened yesterday. Trump may be responsible for the state of politics today because certainly the rhetoric he uses is inflammatory, but it's also effective. So you can blame Trump. You can blame people on the right, people on the left for the incendiary rhetoric and inflaming tensions and hatred and violence. Sure. But they don't carry out the acts of violence. And you can't lay all the blame on somebody who says something. The blame, of course, rests primarily in this case in the hands of one shooter. And as for the overall state of our politics, the one thing I'll say is that's on us. That's on voters. I don't think we live in a political society anymore that will look at a terrible Democrat or a terrible Republican and drum them out of office. Because regardless of what they say or do, in many cases, we say, well, I don't like that, but I could never vote for the other side. I think we see a lot of that. I'm not surprised by what I'm seeing in the chat right now. I'm not going to engage it. I know there's a lot of people in here. Again, this is the largest live stream I've had, and I very, very much appreciate it. For those of you who just come in, we did just get an update from the FBI and Utah Public Safety. They are analyzing a treasure trove of video and security cam footage of the shooter. This is mere speculation, but they certainly talk like they may have an idea of who it is, and that they're playing this close to the vest, obviously not to tip them off to anything. What they did tell us was that the assassin arrived more than 2 hours before the shooting at the site where they carried it out. The FBI has recovered the rifle used. I believe it was in a wooded area near the campus. I don't recall them saying that fingerprints were recovered, but they did say palm prints and a forearm print, as well as some footprints that were taken from the scene where the high powered bolt action rifle was found. So as far as the manhunt for the assassin, I think right now we can only hope that the FBI has a good idea of who it is and is in the process of figuring out the best way to find them, capture them, and build their case. Clearly, I don't think anybody is doubting that this was a political assassination, but this still potentially needs to be proven in a court of law. And so the FBI has to do its due diligence here. And of course, that means it may seem like we're not getting as much information as we want, and it may seem like things are moving slowly. Jin Z, that is a statement that I can certainly agree with. Right now, the priority is to catch the assassin. Catch the assassin, and being the humanist I like to be, I want them alive. I don't want them dead. I want everything to be laid out in a court of law. I want justice. And if that ends in the death sentence, then so be it. But no, I'm not going to engage in any of that. There's I hate to say that I apologize. I can't moderate the entire chat. Obviously, there's too much traffic right now, but I'm not gonna I'm gonna do about what happens next and what should happen next. Nobody should be killed for what happened. Just like Charlie Kirk shouldn't have been killed. Right now, the person who did it needs to be captured and held accountable. One of my favorite quotes comes from John Adams. Comes from the book written by David McCullough that was turned into a miniseries by Tom Hanks on HBO. It's absolutely fantastic, and if you haven't seen it, I assume it's on HBO Max. I highly recommend watching it. It is a great piece of presidential history. John Adams said that we must be a that's what we strive to do. That's what we strive to do. You know, one thing I never understood. One thing I never understood. Covering the war after 9/11. I'm not gonna lie. After 9/11, I'm not gonna lie. I wasn't a fan of Gitmo. I wasn't a fan of the torture and the imprisonment. I wasn't a fan of the torture and the imprisonment. I would have preferred that we brought back the Nuremberg trials. I would have preferred that we tried these people in a fair court of law. And then if a jury determined that they be imprisoned or they be hanged for war crimes or crimes against humanity, I wish we had done that. I'm sorry, I'm getting off topic. So we are now in, boy, we're about 18-20 hours after this started, about 18 hours. Right now, for as far as we know, that the assassin remains at large, but as you see on the information next to me here, there's new information coming from the FBI this morning that gives a good sign that they may know who this is already. And if not, they're getting awfully close. I'm not sure if they were very clear that they said they had a good picture of the face. I know they said a lot of the footage they had was of poor quality. Um, but obviously, it sounds like it was enough to at least track the suspect's movements, and that is a huge get for forensics, because if you can track a person's movements, you can really uh, pin down how they got there, how they escaped, and any possible tangible qualities or marks that may help identify them. I'm not getting into the trans or the conspiracy talk or any of that. Right now, there's no signal of that. No one, as far as we know, has been suspected or arrested in connection with this. And as far as we know, the FBI, and again, this is arguably the most president-friendly FBI. This is, in fact, I should point this out. Charlie Kirk was instrumental and a major influence in President Trump's cabinet selections this time around. He was at the White House quite a bit in the early days of the administration. He was with the president a lot during the transition. And in fact, he was one of the biggest supporters and proponents pushing President Trump to nominate Kash Patel to the FBI. I don't think Kash Patel would be where he is today without Charlie Kirk. So for those who support the president, support Charlie Kirk, I find it very disappointing that right off the bat, before we know much of anything, that we're going to go down the conspiracy hole, and that somebody like Kash Patel wouldn't hold people responsible for somebody that he liked, respected, and helped his career so much. I don't understand where the thinking goes with that. I know it's easy every time something terrible like this happens to go down the conspiracy hole, because people are angry. It's hard to believe that something can be taken away so easily by one person, but that's the truth. It can. And whether or not that's the case here, we'll find out. But there's no reason right now to suspect a major conspiracy. There's no reason to suspect anything about the shooter and their motive other than the clearest one, which was a political assassination. Yeah, I know there's a lot of talk of people using hand signals. My assumption from the video was that those are members of Kirk's private security. I've dealt with private security many times at political events. I I didn't see anything that I've never seen before, and I have no doubt that the FBI, and a Kash Patel FBI no less, would certainly look if there was any validity to it. I don't think that that's anyone's concern right now. Now, that could change, but there's nothing that sits here and tells me that I think that that's going to happen. No, by all accounts so far, unless something changes, new information comes out, this was one person. We've been down this road a million times in our country. One person, whether a fanatic or somebody who clearly really plans out a strategy like what appears to have happened here. In a free society, things like this happen, and it's nothing new. Openness and free exchange of ideas, unfortunately, because of human nature, comes at a risk. Just ask Gabby Giffords. Just ask the lawmakers in Minnesota. Just ask Steve Scalise or President Trump. There were a lot of people upset with the way the country was operating under Joe Biden, and today there's a lot of people upset with the way the country is operating under President Trump. That anger is being fueled. The flames are being fanned. And it shouldn't be a surprise to anybody on either side that people have taken that anger and hatred and turned it against those that they don't agree with. Nobody should be killed over words. You know, here where I live in eastern Iowa, we had a white supremacist group that marched through the street of our up, and I believe we just dropped out briefly. I am sorry about that. I don't know what's going on. My internet, as far as I can tell, is perfectly fine, so I'm not sure what is going on. Um, I'll try and take a look here real quick. I did get I did get some alerts. So to everyone who has subscribed, thank you so much. I so very much appreciate it. I would really like to do this more often and have a good conversation. I'm not going to assume there's any political bias behind my stream lagging. It may just be, could be anything. I don't know. But again, there's still hundreds of you in here, and boy, do I greatly appreciate that. I don't I don't know if we're really going to be getting any more information here in the near future, as things seem to be progressing in the investigation and the manhunt, but it's happening behind the scenes. And for now, it seems like they're happy that the FBI and the investigators are content in it happening behind the scenes right now. One person that unfortunately has become overly politicized, by people who disagree with him, that I like to turn to at times like this is Stephen Colbert. I Boy, I remember Stephen Colbert on the Daily Show before Jon Stewart when it was Craig Kilborn. Not to date me too much, and I thought what he said last night was basic and poignant. Um, they had locked in their show before this all happened, and there is no way, shape, or form that you can properly address this in that short amount of time. My stream's cutting out every 4 seconds. Again, I apologize. I'm getting great upload speeds here on my end, but I am getting a lot of dropped frames as well. I can't seem to find a way to fix it. If anybody who streams uses OBS and YouTube and has any suggestions, feel free to share them in the chat. But again, I do apologize for that. I'd love to find a way to stop that from happening. I have tried restarting my stream before, and it looks like on its own it just restarted about a minute or so ago. So it doesn't seem like it will be it would be a fix to the issue, because yes, I have tried that before in OBS. So yeah, I apologize that the stream is just not cooperating. But once I'm done, I'll try and do a little bit more troubleshooting and figure out what's going on with that. But obviously, you know, I don't have the following to monetize this. I'd like to, and hopefully that would let me invest in some better equipment in the future. I'll lead that to a hope. Um, so, anyways, what Stephen Colbert said last night, just briefly, because the show was locked in, they just added this to the beginning. He said, "We here at the Late Show learned that Charlie Kirk, a prominent right-wing activist, was killed at a speaking engagement in Utah. Our condolences go out to his family and all of his loved ones. I'm old enough to personally remember the political violence of the 1960s, and I hope it is obvious to everyone in America that political violence. You know what? I'm going to let him say it. Let me try and pop this up for you. Sorry about the. I'm not in studio mode here, so let me. I don't know why it won't. I'll just have to play the desktop audio. I think that's something we should all agree with. We can't change what's happened, but it needs to stop. It doesn't matter um, how peaceful our dialogue is. People in public office, people in positions of power will always be at risk. That is unfortunately the nature of an open society, and that is not exclusive to the United States. We saw a former prime minister brutally assassinated in Japan, Shinzo Abe, not that long ago. But I've always enjoyed listening to what Stephen Colbert says in times like this. If you're not familiar with Stephen Colbert, his political views are of left leaning now, mainly societal views. He's a devout Catholic, very devout Catholic, in fact, and just by all accounts of people that I know who've worked with him, who've spoken to him, is about as genuine of an article as you can get. Loving father and husband. Um, One could argue, taking their views aside, that there may be a lot of similarities between a Charlie Kirk and a Stephen Colbert in their faith and their beliefs and their morality. They just had very different views on society, and that is okay in a civilized and open republic. I don't. I don't know what else to say in terms of providing comfort or reason or understanding, and I don't think anybody really can. But Stephen Colbert is the one person that I look forward to listening to tonight. Another that I look forward to listening to, who does a quasi editorial every night on the Evening News Plus, is John Dickerson of CBS News. I like listening to these people because in times of crisis, in times of division, they're voices of reasons and they're voices of perspective. Yes, we can be frightened, we can be upset, and we can think that everything's going to hell. But in many respects, we've been down this road before. The only thing that cures it is putting the right people in charge of our well being. And to be honest, I can't say that we've always done that. That's what I hope gets better. I hope not only that people vote for better leaders, I hope that leaders become better leaders. So, we've had over 40,000 people in here. I cannot believe that. Thank you so much. Um, we've had about 120 new subscribers. That is so much appreciated. Um, I've been working hard, mostly on weather, to get our subscriber base over 1,000, so that I can try and do more of this in times like this, which I think is important. Uh, and just try and share some of my interests, and this is one of them. Major national events, I think, need to be covered as much as possible. And right now, this is the major national event. Into the Kingdom, you're right. Regardless of how you felt about him, this was a husband. This was a father. I'm a father of two little girls, and I spent the first 30 plus years of my life hearing people over and over saying, "Oh, wait till you're a father. Wait till you're a father." Well, they're right. A lot of perspectives can change when you're a father. Maybe that's part of the reason that I still firmly believe that everything Charlie Kirk said he believed in. I don't think everybody who shared his beliefs can say the same, but I believe that in him. It doesn't mean I agree with everything Charlie Kirk said. I just know that he believed in everything he said. And whether you liked it or not, this is not what he deserved. Charlie Kirk was not an evil man. He was a man with deeply held beliefs and wanted others to believe in what he did. And he went about it through debate, the way it should be. The ones I despise are the people who hold views and hide behind leaders and hide behind money and hide behind closed doors, spewing their crap online, or behind usernames. Charlie Kirk put himself out there. Belle Davis, I saw what you wrote. I'm sorry about all of that. I don't know what's going on with my internet. It just keeps getting worse and worse, and everything tells me it's not on my end. I'm not sure if YouTube has a thing or if I have a problem with OBS. Uh, but I'm still happy to entertain anyone's suggestions on how to fix that, because I'd really like to do this more often, especially if we can get over 1,000 subscribers. I really want to do more of this. I think it's important. And I think there's enough of you that are in the chat and that are watching and not chatting who are willing to listen and ignore some of the crap on the chat that goes on in, every chat that people are in. So our viewership's coming down quite a bit. I understand there's not a lot of new information coming out, but again, I really appreciate everyone that's been joining us, and just having a simple discussion. That's it. I come from a journalist background. I have my personal views, but I try not to share them as much as possible because I don't think that that really adds much to it. I want to hear the views of others. I want to challenge the views of others. Like I challenge my own views personally. Because if I have a belief of something that I think that this country should do, or a policy that this country should enact, I sometimes try and argue against it. Because I think debate and discourse makes us stronger and can make a point more valid too, if you can stand up to scrutiny. But that's what I believe. One personal thing I think I might say is I don't know where you go to get your news. There's a good chance that it's somewhere online, reputable or unreputable. But one thing I am biased towards is journalists. And I think journalists are the people you should follow. I don't think you should follow pundits. I don't think you should follow the loudest, brightest voices in cable news. I think you need to follow the journalists. And there are great journalists on CNN, on Fox, on MSNBC, and more importantly on CBS, NBC, ABC, PBS, NPR, and so on. There are plenty of good people out there, plenty of experts who don't spew in speculation, hearsay, and inflammatory remarks. There are people that are really having a good conversation about this, and I'd like to be one of those. So again, I appreciate everyone's support. I appreciate everyone that's subscribed. We're so close to reaching a point where we can really work on this as a legitimate place for conversation and information, and that's my goal. I like covering weather. I try and focus on Iowa. I like covering news. A lot of that focuses on Iowa with national implications, and I'm happy to do even more. I think anything that can be added for context for anybody willing to watch it or to listen, we need that. Charlie Kirk wanted people to listen to him. He wanted to be challenged by people, and I think we need more of that. Maybe not in the style that he did it. Maybe not the loudest voice. But sometimes if you're not loud, sometimes if you're not screaming at somebody, you might actually hear them. And you might hear something you agree with, or you might hear something that makes you realize, well, maybe I'm not quite getting this right. Admitting that is what we've lost as a society. We've also lost that when a debate ends and action is taken, that's it. You have to move on. Even if you don't want to, you have to move on. Even if it's changing the way you're fighting it, it's lost and you need to move on. People today seem incapable of doing that, and I think that they're egged on. I really do. I think they're egged on, and I think it's the flood of money into politics has turned it into the blood sport, and I say that figuratively, the blood sport that it is. As I reflect on it, I think about other events like this, some that I remember personally, some I don't. I don't know if it changes anything. And if it does, I don't think it changes anything for the better. Did anything get better when JFK was assassinated? Or RFK? Or Martin Luther King Jr.? Did anything get better just because Ronald Reagan almost died? Or President Trump almost died? No good ever comes out of things like this. I'd like that to change, though. Gary, yeah, you're right. No one deserves to die because they don't agree with you. Look, like I said, there's a lot of things Charlie Kirk said and believed in I don't believe in, and I don't think is good for this country. I will admit that. But he's not the one that enacted a damn thing. He may have pushed politicians, he may have pushed Americans into believing in something that he believed in, but he didn't take the action. And the people who did take the action don't deserve either what happened to Charlie Kirk. If you disagree with somebody, that's what voting is for. If you disagree with somebody strongly, that's what getting involved in politics is for. That's what volunteering is for. That's what finding better candidates on both sides is for. I promise that's as angry as I'm going to get. Wow, we're getting close to 950 subscribers. I know that is an insanely small number of subscribers, but it's 130 more than we had an hour ago, and I so greatly appreciate all of you for supporting this. We don't make any money. This is just me with a microphone in my basement office, and just trying to talk even to myself here on camera to try and better understand the what's and the whys of this horrible event. I know. I apologize for the skipping and the sound. I don't know what's going on. I my internet says it's working great, and it's just not. It doesn't seem to be working. So I again, if anybody has problems like this with OBS or just in general with YouTube, please let me know. I'm happy to try everything, and it's something I'm going to try and troubleshoot when I end the stream. Stephanie Copley, who keeps popping up on my feed. I'm not really sure what uh, her connection to anything is other than she's an Iowan like me. I think she summed it up great. Everything is just impossibly overwhelming right now, and I imagine a lot of you feel that way too. The the state of our society was really evident yesterday watching coverage of the assassination, and they had to cut away for a moment to talk about another shooting at an American high school in the same county as Columbine. I haven't I haven't read this quote, but I might pop it up here. David Axelrod, who was uh, a key member of the first Obama administration and really an architect of his rise uh, in the Democratic Party, said something interesting. Oh, that is not the right footage. I apologize. There we go. This coming from David Axelrod on CNN last night. Prescription for disaster. David Axelrod was a strategist first and a pundit second. And so he always has a great measured analysis of what's right and wrong, regardless of what he's talking about. And he's absolutely right. I recall seeing the video of Robert Kennedy's speech after Martin Luther King. He had to, I mean, this is the 1960s. People hadn't heard yet that Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated, and he had to tell a crowd. And one of the most poignant moments of it, because the whole reason he spoke to the crowd was there was concerns about violence, and there was a lot of violence and rioting and anger after Martin Luther King Jr. died. And what Robert Kennedy told the audience, I will never forget. He told them what had happened. He told them that he was angry too. And he said something that was just fascinating to say, because he knew that race was going to play a role in everything that was about to happen. And he told the audience that my brother was also killed by a white man. That was not a racial murder, but I think it was important for him to say. So here we are, another political assassination. It's nothing new. I'm sure many people of a certain age in the 60s watched what happened, thinking that the country was going to hell and it was all falling apart. And that's a sentiment that many people have had in different ways over many years. The problem is that it doesn't lead to anything being fixed. People didn't like Donald Trump for a lot of reasons. People didn't like his handling, his lies. They didn't like his rhetoric. They didn't like his handling of COVID or any of his conservative policies. And they voted him out. And they voted for somebody that they thought was going to fix things. And to Biden's credit, there was legislation passed that disputably did things that he promised he would do. But overall, people's lives didn't get better. The stock market got better. The economy got better. But generally, people didn't get better. And so they elected Donald Trump again to fix the economy. They knew he wanted to do tariffs. Every expert said tariffs is a terrible idea and it's going to hurt the economy and hurt the American people with tariffs, which is essentially a tax that ultimately will be handed down or will be absorbed by consumers. He was elected anyways. And they're not getting the results they want. And so by all accounts, there's a good chance we're going to see another shift back to the left in the midterms, just because people are angry. But the problem is that while we demand accountability and we hold people accountable for their actions or inactions, we're not getting the people that we need in leadership to actually do the things to fix a problem. It's easier for leaders to say there's a problem and to blame it on somebody and to say, I'm going to fix it. But the hard part is to actually fix it. And that's what we're not seeing among our members of Congress. We're seeing a paralyzed, literally paralyzed Congress that has done almost nothing this year. They've passed one landmark bill. That was controversial. I think we deserve better. But that goes to having better leaders. And there are good Republicans and Democrats that really want to make a difference. I know that. I speak to them. But we don't have a leadership apparatus in either party that's really able to do much of anything. Because anything of substance that could help or hurt the American people comes down a party vote. And that anger is building, and that anger ultimately is what leads to things like this. So we've been at this for nearly 2 hours now. I'm not sure. I doubt many of you have been here for that entire time, but again, I really do appreciate it. Um, I really hope we can get. I'd really like to get to 1,000 subscribers so that we can keep doing this. Again, if anybody's still having problems, I do apologize. I have no idea why. I keep getting error messages from YouTube and really no explanation as to what the problem is, other than they say that my bit rate is too low. Um, looks like we're getting an update from the Wall Street Journal. Unfortunately, it looks like it's behind a paywall, but uh, this is the Wall Street Journal. Investigators found ammunition engraved with expressions of transgender and anti-fascist ideology inside the rifle that authorities believe was used in the fatal shooting of Charlie Kirk. The older model 30 caliber hunting rifle was discovered in the woods near the scene of Wednesday's shooting at Utah Valley University, wrapped in a towel with a spent cartridge still in the chamber. There were 3 unspent rounds in the magazine, all with wording on them. So again, it appears that somebody who hated what Charlie Kirk said about the transgender community carried out this attack. last night on CNN, uh, Mark Kelly, Senator Mark Kelly of Arizona, was on. Charlie Kirk lived in Arizona. His residence was in Arizona, and obviously Mark Kelly has deep feelings about things like this because his wife was the target of a political assassination attempt. She was shot in the head and permanently disabled. Struggles to this day with speaking, and had to leave her seat in the House. Her husband, a former astronaut, now serves as a senator, and along with his wife, the former congresswoman, they've been huge advocates of gun law reform. Look, I want to play what he had to say last night about this. Senator Mark Kelly of Arizona, a Democrat. Yeah, I mean, how do you disagree with that? And I have to give credit to both Democrats and Republicans who make it clear that this is a problem on both sides. This has led to assassinations of people of all political views. In this case, it appears it was somebody who hated Charlie Kirk for his views on the transgender community and other policy issues. My goodness. One thing I think that is frustrating for everybody is faceless names here in the chat saying awful things. That's the internet for you. What is truly terrifying is people in authority, people who are respected, people who are listened to by a lot of people, will say awful things. One example, Craig Shirley, who's a prominent conservative author, um, said that it is abundantly clear the left in America is dangerous and out of control. They, as in the left, must be dealt with in the harshest possible terms. He calls liberals a organized crime syndicate. So no, people aren't halting their inflammatory rhetoric because of this. They're only making it worse. I don't know why anybody would kill anybody for what they do. It's a mentality I hope I never have. I hope I never have that. One one person I saw recently, Dean Withers, who is a very successful liberal uh, podcaster and debater, has had debates with Charlie Kirk. Has challenged him. He actually goes to his events and tries to get the mic and get a question in, and then and post it on his channel. Um, he was at the event. I don't think anybody dislikes Charlie Kirk more for his views than Dean Withers. I want you to listen to what he had to say after what happened. I think it's important. No, nobody deserves that. Sorry about that. Um, I don't know why that started playing again. Still so much hate on both sides. This doesn't change that. It only makes it worse. Looks like Caitlin Collins got a comment from President Trump just a short time ago. Let's listen to this. Yeah, that was President Trump a short time ago speaking with Caitlin Collins after, I presume, after the 9/11 event at the Pentagon this morning. Just scanning some of the comments that are coming out this morning. Place some of these from leaders. That was Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer and House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries speaking a short time ago. As he I see people commenting about the president this morning at the 9/11 event, looking, uh, I would say at the very least, tired. I wouldn't go any further than that, of course, but president was very close with Charlie Kirk, by all accounts. Charlie Kirk was very influential in shaping the president's administration the second time around. So um, I'm not going into any health BS with the president. He lost somebody that he clearly was close to in some fashion, and that's difficult. Again, I want to thank everybody who's been joining us. I know things are quieting down, and we might go ahead and wrap up the stream here in a little bit. Um, about 150 new subscribers during the chat and or during the live stream. I really appreciate that. It's just me. I'm doing this on my own, and I had started doing it off and on, to try and see if I could build enough of a following to do this more often. And yesterday I just jumped on and just felt like I needed to do something and share information that is at least reliable, and make sure everybody gets the information that they need to have. Anybody at least that's willing to listen. And YouTube tells me nearly 50,000 people have at least popped in, and I am so very appreciative of that. So thank you to all of you who have subscribed. We're just so close to that 1,000 threshold that we need to get to hopefully begin to get more support and begin to improve things on my end, like the internet that has been a pain in my side this morning for some reason, and I don't know why. So thank you everyone so much again for your help and your support. Those of you who've been respectful in the chat. I know that's not an easy thing to do, or just simply listening and sharing some time to just kind of digest this. Because like so many other times, this is impossible to digest. Sam, you asked, why do people divide to push their narrative? Because I honestly, in this day and age, I think it's because it's the only way you ever get noticed. Let's say you're a Democrat, and you're talking to somebody and say, you know what, Republicans are right. We need to get this budget balanced. It's ridiculous. I disagree on how we do it, but I think Republicans are right that we need to balance the budget. That Democrat would be drummed out almost immediately. And we've seen what's happened to anybody on the right that disagrees with the president. They're casted out. I think it's much worse on the Republican side, but there is plenty wrong with Democrats in that you follow the process or you're not part of the party. Our parties need to be more fractured. They need to be more focused and more concerned about their local constituents. And the only reason that they're not is they don't have to. Because in this day and age, people don't always vote because they like everything about a candidate. Sometimes they just vote because they have learned and been influenced by digital or slanted media to hate someone on a different side. And that hate means they're evil. That hate means they're going to destroy the country, and they don't deserve my vote. I don't know who changes this. The easiest way to bring the heat down is to have leaders who don't take part in that part of the discourse. I'll give you an example. One of my favorite public officials in recent history is Pete Buttigieg. I met him at his very first campaign event in Iowa when he was running for president in 2019. And I thought, okay, let's go see this fringe candidate. We'll spray it. We'll do an interview with him, and we'll get a 20-second soundbite and get out of here. I didn't know who this guy was. He was mayor of a town. I didn't know why he was running for president. All I knew was that he was gay. And I thought, okay, well, maybe he's trying to continue to push that agenda in a future administration. I could not believe, and I may have the entire thing still on my YouTube channel somewhere. I could not believe how effectively he spoke to people who were there, how he answered criticisms, how he answered questions, for lack of a better explanation, like a grown-up. I couldn't hear a single talking point in what he said. And what I respect about Pete Buttigieg more than most politicians today is he doesn't just go on MSNBC. He doesn't just go on liberal podcasts. He goes to podcasts that sometimes support right-wing views. He goes to Fox News. He goes to I believe Newsmax he was on once. I can't remember if it was before or after he was Secretary of Transportation. But that's what we have to do. Both sides need to stop this isolationism. And that starts with us. We have to support shows and support online products that do talk to both sides and that are respectful. But unfortunately, especially when it comes to television, it's the if it bleeds, it leads mentality, and that means that you get the loudest people, the most controversial people. Look at the controversy around. Uh, I'm probably getting it wrong, but I believe it's a YouTube series called Surrounded, and it's where people like they brought I believe Charlie Kirk was on there, and they surround him with all of these people who disagree with his views, or Mehdi Hassan, and they surround him with all these people with different views. These people, as some have pointed out, weren't your average conservatives. They many of them were deeply uneducated about reality, and some of them, one was a self-described fascist who wanted to elect a dictator. I don't think these people represented the vast majority of conservatives or the right. I think that they were put in there because they were radical, they were crazy on the right, and that got clicks. So no, I hate that that's how we have discourse in our country. I think it needs to be more visible. And admittedly, that's hard to do. But you know what? In a fractured media world with streaming and everything else, maybe it isn't that hard. Why does it have to just be traditional broadcast? Why can't it be an online resource? Why can't it be Netflix, who creates a show that is topical and relevant and has good discourse that doesn't get out of control? Would people watch it? I guess not. But I know I would. I know I would. Some of my favorite interviews are ones I don't even know if you can find them online anymore. I remember when Jon Stewart interviewed uh, Mike Huckabee, who I believe was it was around his first presidential bid. It might have been 2008 or 2007, and they had a 30-minute discussion on abortion. They talked about abortion. Nobody yelled. Nobody used a talking point. Nobody changed their opinion when it was over. But at the end, both sides agreed that they had a better understanding of where the other side was coming from. And you know what? That's good. Debate doesn't have to end in changing someone's mind. Debate can end in someone against you understanding you, and vice versa. We need that. I'm not going to lie, it's more fun to talk about the weather than this. But this is still important. So we're inching closer to the 2.5 hour mark. Not sure how much longer I want to keep the stream up. Although apparently I have excellent signal now, so maybe I should. Maybe YouTube got the message. Who knows? But again, I just want to thank everybody. We've never had a live stream like this. And I'm so appreciative to everybody who's joined us. Nearly 50,000 people have at least clicked in. Hundreds of you have been sticking around with us for quite some time, and I just want to say thank you. Everybody who subscribed, thank you. We're so close to getting to that first critical threshold on YouTube when it comes to subscribers. Really, really want to hit it. because I like to have conversations like this. I like to provide context, and I like to cover weather as well. At least here in Iowa, I can't compete with the big boys, but when it comes to things like this, I just want to have a place where people can at least try and have a conversation, even if it gets lost in all the BS that's in the chat stream right now. I don't want to yell. I just wanted to share some thoughts. But right now, there's the information is just honestly trickling out. The main headline right now is that, as you see beside me, that there's a lot of forensic evidence that's been recovered. I would assume it's possible they may have a suspect in mind, that they're working to build the case, working to determine how to reach that person. But the new information from the Wall Street Journal was that investigators found ammunition engraved with expressions of transgender and anti-fascist ideology inside the rifle that authorities believe was used in the fatal shooting of Charlie Kirk. Now, the right is going to have a field day with this. That this is another radical leftist who carried out this attack. And to some extent, they're right. But I think what people need to keep in mind is this is not a problem that is only targeting Republicans. It is not. And to be more precise, the motive of this shooter is just a symptom. It's a side effect. That's not... I guess I don't know how to say it, but this person's hate was fueled by something. And it can be fueled by more than one thing. It can be fueled by mental health. It can be fueled by rhetoric online against the far right. But it's a reminder of the problem we're in, and that we have to provide context in all of these. The person who killed the Democratic lawmaker in Minnesota was politically motivated. By all accounts, the person who killed Charlie Kirk was politically motivated. But there are other examples. The person who tried to kill President Trump, the person that took the shot at President Trump, by all accounts, they were not politically motivated. They expressed no views on the left or the right, and they were looking for targets that were just big events nearby. Some of them weren't even political, and they chose this one. So there's going to be a lot of talk among pundits with an agenda. But to be clear, the attempted assassination of President Trump, by all accounts, was not political. This one, by all accounts, however, was. So I just want to provide that context. There's going to be a lot of people that are going to cite a lot of acts of violence as though it shows that one political side is evil, and it's just absolutely not true. And I hope most people realize that. I really do. I hope that people on the left and the right who jointly believe this is wrong and don't buy in to the vapid response that's going on right now, I hope those are the people that come together and have a conversation. Whether you like Charlie Kirk or not, he was all about conversation. And we need more of that. And we need to change how we talk to one another. I imagine there's a lot of online debaters on the left and the right, hopefully, are looking at themselves right now and how they address things. One thing I'll say is I don't espouse to name calling. I know a lot of podcasters who will refuse to say Trump. They'll use different nicknames for Trump, or they'll do it with Biden, or they did it with Biden and Hillary and all that. I just, who are you talking to? I mean, I guess basically you're just talking to people who are just as angry, and they just want to listen to somebody else who reinforces their view. And when you hear somebody say something awful that you agree with, I imagine it's satisfying because you feel validated. You feel validated. So anyways, I hope some of this is making sense. There's still a few dozen of you in here, so I guess maybe I can take that as a yes. Sorry, I'm not talking to anybody right now. Just this is some older footage from CNN, but I think Brian Stelter, who was let go and has since been brought back, has often been a very rational voice when it comes to political discourse, and I do respect his opinion. So I want to play this and see what he had to say about Charlie Kirk. And you can disagree with everything that Charlie Cook stood for, but you got to respect that. Whether he knew he could own anybody who debated him or not, he gave everybody that opportunity. You can't say that about a lot of pundits, about a lot of people who spew things that may upset people. I don't know. I thought that was important to hear. I'm trying to find the reason out there because there's a lot of Oh, I'm sorry, the video was muted. If that was the case, I apologize. I thought I had it playing. The levels were showing up, but for some reason, I guess it didn't go out. Let me... Yep, I see what happened. That I apologize. You know what? I'll play that one again. Hopefully it works this time. Let me give this a shot.
Accessibility was really one of his virtues, Jake. He believed in the power to persuade. That's why he was launching this fall semester tour in Utah today. He had at least a dozen other tour stops scheduled across the country in the coming months. He liked to debate people he disagreed with. In fact, that was the point of the tour, and that's exactly what he was doing this afternoon in the courtyard there at the university. He was taking on questions from people who disagreed with him. I remember getting an invitation from him once to debate with him back in 2020. 21. I looked it up. I want to read his words because we should hear from him in his own words. He said, "I'm trying to be proactive about encouraging dialogue between people who disagree."
Hopefully that worked. I apologize again if it didn't. Not sure what the issue is, but I promise I'll work that out before the next time. Mac, you said the audio did work. That's good. Thank you. If that's the case, sorry about that. Want to oops. Here's here's something that Jake Tapper said yesterday on CNN.
It's so easy in this world. Everybody just demonizes everybody else. And look, Charlie was in the battle. You know, he was in the political rough and tumble too. But these are human beings, and you know they don't eat, breathe, and sleep politics. I mean, Charlie had a wife, and Charlie had 2 little kids. And again, you could disagree with every word that Charlie Kirk ever said, and still think those kids deserve to have a dad. And I don't know where we've come in this country that this kind of thing is becoming so commonplace.
And I think that moment, I mean, this is a White House and a political team that's around Trump that obviously they prize loyalty, and the people who are in his circle have been in his circle for a while, that just went through an attempted assassination of the president last year. And
really.
Obviously with what happened at Mar-a-Lago subsequently. And so just for this day and this moment to have happened to them, I think you make a good point, though, about him being a human. And a lot of them do know his wife and his children and his family.
I think that's a message that is getting some attention by some. Unfortunately, not all. There's a human being behind this. They didn't commit any crime. Well, I think it's about time that I give this a rest. We've been at this for over 2.5 hours now. I want to thank everybody. I could not have expected when I hit start streaming that we'd be at nearly 50,000 views. And that many of you have stuck around for a very long time. And I cannot stress enough how much I appreciate it. 50,000 views. So many of you have liked the video. So many of you have subscribed, which is just the absolute best. Coming close now to 1,000 subscribers and allowing us to allowing me to maybe put some more effort into this and some time into this would be so very much appreciated. Because I like doing it. I like just having a conversation. Even if I can't hear you, I can still read you in the comments in the chat, and I'm just very appreciative. And it's good to hear somewhere in that chat mess that there are some people out there who might feel the same way. So I guess that's what I have. Hopefully we'll hear some good news about the suspect here in the near future. Maybe we'll do this again later today. I don't know. But again, I want to thank everybody for being here. Thank you all who have subscribed. We are so close to 1,000 now. So close to that level we need to reach, and I can't thank you enough for helping us get a little closer to that here on the channel. So that's going to do it for me. Again, thank you so much. Please find some time to relax, enjoy your day today. Hopefully it's as beautiful as it is here in eastern Iowa. And yeah, find a little joy today. Take a break. Everything you need to know about the world will be here when you're ready. I think that's a good idea. So thank you all once again. Thank you for joining me, and I hope to see you again very soon.